It's another fine day at Camp Dynasty. I am Counselor Austin, joined by Counselor Collin. And we have, so far, through 4 weeks, covered all of the offensive position groups that we care about ahead of the 2026 NFL draft, which is, only a mere 8 months away at this point, 9 months. So, we're working ahead a little bit, and we typically would do the same thing with IDPs as well. We grind the tape in the summer. It's 3 position groups. It's like 3 episodes in one, 2.5. DBs are only kind of people. But this year, after 3 years of doing that, we thought it made a lot more sense for us to not submit ourselves to that level of torture 9 months in advance for players that, as we've learned for 3 years, can be very volatile. And really, when we get to the NFL draft, that's kind of the point in time where we start to learn everything we need to learn about an IDP class.
Right.
Because IDP, we all know, very dependent outside of the tippy top of the class, very dependent on who has the opportunities available to them. So, in the interest of sparing ourselves a little bit, I mean, I've watched more running backs, wide receivers than I have ever watched in the summer before. So I'm not, this is not about taking a break. We're just trying to do this in the best way possible. We are going to go over a list of 10 IDPs that have been carefully selected as guys that we think are going to be the names that we're talking about in 9 months' time. This is not based on film evaluation. I want to be very clear about that. This was not based off of grinding multiple games per player and forming an opinion. This is a combination of reviewing their last season's performance, a little bit of like, I'm going to turn on a YouTube video real quick, get a sense of the player, and then a little bit of, these are also going to be some of the names that you're hearing if you are one of the crazy people like us that is going out and seeking 2026 draft content in July. So with all of that said, Collin, how do you feel about this new format that we're embarking in?
If we have anybody that's like has a marketing degree that can figure out how to make a title for this, that would be great. Because sitting here like, yeah, we're doing, guys that we think will be good. We're doing 10 guys that we think will be good, not really ranked. And that's not really a catchy SEO title. But I think that this is a better way to go about it than trying to like rank guys that you have no, like we spent a lot of time talking about like the Barrett Carters of the world, the Jeremiah Trotter Juniors of the world that ended up being like undrafted, being 6th-round picks. And it's just like, the amount of energy that you like put into this might not end up coming back out because you do all that and then it could fizzle into nothing in 6 months time. So I think just talking about these guys more big picture and kind of getting a feeling of what they do well, what they don't do well, and just kind of having a baseline understanding, getting some names jotted down in the watch list and not necessarily like staking a claim and like making a hard take on these players. I think that's the best way we can go about it.
Yeah. To be, plain and simple, there is also just not a lot of tape out there on these guys, which is why, another reason why it sometimes, you rank these players, it feels a little bit disingenuous because it's like, well, this is what I saw on film, but I watched like a game and a half because that's what I could find.
And he played 26 pass rush snaps. And, like
James Pierce Jr. looking at you. So yeah, I think this is a good way to handle it. Let's call it an introduction to the 2026 IDP class.
Yes.
I'm
like
feeling
that.
like, yeah, see, here we go. I feel like 70% of these guys will be names that we are still hearing next March and April and into the summer, ideally as well. So um, it with that said, I think in doing this, it seems as though the defensive class as a whole for the 2026 NFL draft is going to be another strong group. It seems like we're going to have another strong edge group. A lot of these guys, we're going to talk about 4 edge players, 4 defensive linemen today. All of these guys are true juniors. They've all flashed already. Many of them flashed as freshmen. This is a class that has come up through the ranks. And it seems like we're going to be kind of poised for another strong edge group like last year. And the linebackers, Colin, we're going to talk about 4 of those today as well. Actually, 5. I think we're talking about 5 linebackers, kind of. There's a reason we're talking about 5 of them, because it seems like this could also be a pretty strong linebacker crew, which is not something we've really had since we started Camp Dynasty. There really has not been a linebacker class
Mm-hmm.
as a whole that has been like really talented IDP, heavy on these guys.
Yeah, I agree. I took away a similar thing when I came into watching this. I was like, the linebackers feel pretty solid, and I felt pretty comfortable with that. And then the edge class, I think there is some pretty high end talent. I don't know if it's like super deep, but I thought that this would end up being a pretty solid, even though might not be like a signature guy. Like there was last year and previous years, I think you're still looking at a pretty good IDP class with some depth in that linebacker class, like you said, which we haven't really seen. We've seen guys come and go, but even that, like, it hasn't really been all that like fruitful. We've kind of been waiting for a signature linebacker prospect to come through. Like I thought it would be Jack Campbell. He's been okay, but I don't think we've had really a like real, unless I'm forgetting somebody.
I was going to say, is Jack Campbell like not the best one in terms of like the production that because we've seen guys
Yeah,
come up like now entering year 3, like we've seen some breakouts like Diane Henley and things like that. But like when we were talking about the class, I think Jack Campbell is probably the highest profile linebacker that we've had that has actually like seen some success.
yeah, that's what I was thinking. Is that he feels like the highest touted, first round pick. We talked about him a lot. I loved him. I know you liked him. And then he's turned into like a starter, but like kind of plays second fiddle to Anzalone in the Lions linebacker room anyway. So there's definitely been guys, and that's kind of the point of why we're doing this is like, you never really know exactly who's going to hit anyway. Cause like Dayan Henley, what was a 3rd round pick, and then ends up being like he was really good last year, and then just like sometimes it's pretty hit or miss. So I think that we got a group of guys here that are gonna maybe change that a little bit.
And we will be talking about one singular DB. We're saving him for the very end of the show. Maybe the best for last.
You know who this is if
Yeah.
you're following along, and if
Oh yeah.
if you've been listening to this, or if you play like college football 26, you probably know who this is. If you are 25 now, 26 early access starts today, yesterday
Hey,
from when it releases.
big day.
Yeah, I mean,
It's
kind
like
of like a
this is
holiday.
yeah, like this should be a national holiday. I mean,
I wish I'd have gotten off work today.
right. Yeah, happy National College Football 26 Day for the people who have chosen to pay EA more money to play it for 3 extra days. But in the spirit of that, as we move through our list, I thought it'd be kind of fun to tie an overall to each one of these players as well. So when you're in the game, you kind of know what to expect. It should be no surprise. We have every single guy on our list, aside from one, is a 90 plus overall player. So,
I
I
feel like
mean,
they're pretty generous. And
Yeah, I think so.
with the like guys that are going to be in the NFL, I feel like, and it makes sense. One thing leads to another, but they're pretty generous with their overalls. Unlike Madden, Madden's like, yeah, you're like a 68. Sorry.
Yeah.
Like Bijan Robinson comes in the league and he's like the best running back prospect we've had since Saquon. They're like, yeah, you're a 70. So
Yeah. You got to earn it, bud. All right. Well, let's dive into this thing. We're talking about 10 IDPs. We'll go by position group, maybe throw out a few extra names to watch at the end. We're starting with D line because in our scoring settings, which are in the description of this episode, tier one defensive linemen, tier one edge players are going to be the cream of the crop. These are, Will Anderson, Abdul Carter. These guys were first round picks for us. And we might have another one of those in this class, starting with our top player, which is TJ Parker from Clemson. He is the second highest overall player I think we are talking about today. He is a 95 overall in college football 26. He is the star among stars on this Clemson defense this upcoming season. There is a lot of talent on this Clemson defense. There's a defensive tackle that is likely to go high in the NFL draft. There's a corner. The next Terrell brother is coming up right now. Linebacker, like all three levels of the defense, they have guys to watch. But TJ Parker is the guy that is getting the most buzz, and there is a reason for that. He's 6'3", 265, was a 4-star recruit in the class of 2023. That is going to be a recurring theme. All of these edge players we're talking about are going to be true juniors this year, and all of them played a decent amount as true freshmen. He was the number 43 overall player in his recruiting class, according to 24/7. And not only did TJ Parker play as a freshman, he set Clemson's true freshman tackles for loss record with 12 and a half, besting former camper Miles Murphy's record of 12. So he comes in, he makes an impact right away as a true freshman, and then last year has his full breakout season. 51 total pressures, that was tied for 14th in the country, 12 sacks, that was tied for 8th in the country, and a school record 6 forced fumbles in one season. Not bad.
yeah.
His marquee performance from last year was against Pitt, where he had 10 pressures, 4 sacks. And now we'll get into a little bit of what does TJ Parker look like on the field, because I saw one of his sacks from that game. He hit a ghost move. It was perfectly executed, and he just appeared in front of the quarterback and just drove him into the earth. It was like, I don't know if that guy's getting back up. So he's clearly got a little bit of refinement even as a pass rusher, showing off a little bit of variety in his moves. He's got the strength and the power to lay quarterbacks out when he gets to them. We know he's taken the ball away a ton, 6 forced fumbles. What did you think about TJ Parker?
Yeah, I took away similar things. I noticed that he had a pretty deep bag when I was watching him. I wasn't, like you said, it wasn't like deep film study, but I was just writing things down as we were going. Like, he can rush from inside or outside, it seems like. When he's on the edge, he has like a pretty nice set of moves and counter moves. He likes the bull rush with like the long arm to kind of create distance. Not a lot of guys can do that. You need to have real long arms. You need to have real strength to do that. And he loves going to the bull rush, but then he'll also go to the rip move pretty often too. So that's a nice 1-2 punch for him. He'll also do the hand shuck just to drive these guys away if they're getting too heavy on their toes. But then when he gets to the inside and he does these inside rushes, he loves a cross chop where he'll just set these guards off balance and then just be in the backfield. And so I think like the amount of stuff that he does with his hands. He has pretty solid footwork. He's not like the most athletic, bursty, fast, bendy edge, but it feels like he has a ton of like strength and understanding and technique behind what he is good at. So I like TJ Parker. Like, this guy feels like a easy, top 10 NFL pick guy, maybe top 5. We'll see. But I enjoyed watching him. It seems like he definitely has a knack for finding the football. He's always attacking it with that punch. That's how he gets those 6 forced fumbles. Is he's like hawking you down from behind. He's going for the ball every single time, and it's not by accident that he's forcing this many fumbles. So definitely is a fun watch. Definitely is a huge playmaker and trying to always make the big play, and works out a lot for him.
Yeah, like you said, this was not like deep film study, but based on what I saw and based on what I saw from the other guys we're going to talk about, this would be my edge one right now
Yeah.
based off of, limited study of him. But I think it was pretty clear pretty quickly. A combination of what you said with the, he's going to a lot of different moves as we move down this list. That's not something I was seeing with all of these guys. I think he's one of the more developed rushers right now, as well as a player that has the length that you're talking about,
Mm-hmm.
going to that long arm move, and forcing fumbles. I think a lot of that too is just he has such long arms. He's able to get his hand in there to knock it away. He's punching at it and he's able to reach it consistently because of that. So he has the natural length. He has the size, 265. He's got the explosiveness at that size. He's 6'3", but that's not showing up with the length. That's going to be one of those things where it's like you want him to be 6'5", but it doesn't really matter if his arms are long enough. That's something we talked about with Donovan Ezaraku last year. It didn't matter that he was like 6'2" or whatever because he had the 34-inch arms. So Parker's got all of the, physical tools that you're looking for, as well as a little bit of development. And also I love how he uses his hands right now. He's such a good player at the point of attack, not only with his pass rush moves, but just setting tackles up. He's going to the swipe move consistently and just getting out from underneath, tacklers trying to get their hands on him. They can't, because he's able to just get his hands on their hands first and kind of win at the point of attack immediately. So, I loved what I saw. To consider that he's a true sophomore, and I think there's another gear here, even after a 12 sack year. He had a 15.3% pass rush win rate last year. That was tied for 31st. You see these guys typically bump that number up as they go, and we're getting guys typically the high end of the high end is going to be somewhere in like the 21 to 23 range. I think if he gets that up, even higher this year, like 20% win rate, he could have like a 15 sack season and be in the conversation for the first non-quarterback taken.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that he's, with what we've talked about, running backs, receivers that would threaten, mostly receivers, because we talked about quarterbacks too. And, one or two of those guys are going to go at the top of the draft, you'd imagine. And then, after that, it feels like it's going to be a defensive player in this class. And so I would put him at the top of that list to be, number 3, maybe overall pick, especially if he's doing things like you're talking about and is building on the success that he had last year and becoming like, a 15 sack game wrecking type of player, even more so than he already was.
All right. Well, the number 2 defensive lineman that we're talking about here is Keldric Faulk from Auburn. He is 93 overall in college football 26.
Pretty good.
Faulk was one of the first names that I wrote down last year.
Faulk or Falk, like Marshall Falk?
Falk.
I'm asking.
What am I saying?
You said fuck.
Beep that out.
I was a little concerned about the SCC coming for us.
Falk.
Yeah. Okay.
Apparently that's just me not knowing how to talk or know how to pronounce words. But so Keldric Faulk. There's a lot of L's happening in there. That's well, anyway, one of the first names I wrote down last year, he was one of the players that just watching college football on a Saturday popped out to me watching an Auburn game. And the reason that he does, I think, is because of his size and his athleticism. 6'6", 270, but he was listed at 288 last season. He was playing a little bit of inside outside for Auburn last year. You're gonna if you're looking at mock drafts, if you're looking at big boards, you might even see people listing Falk as a defensive tackle. I don't think that that is accurate. And I think that his weight dropping to 270 ahead of this season is indicative of the fact that this is a true edge player. He has the explosiveness, he has the length to consistently threaten off of the edge. He was a 4-star recruit as well in the class of 2023. That is the recurring theme here. He was number 62 overall in the class per 24/7. He played every game as a true freshman for Auburn, had 20 pressures and 2 sacks. And then again, the second year, the true sophomore year, is the breakout. Not quite as pronounced as Parker's, but 45 pressures, 9 sacks, and 1 forced fumble for Falk. He, despite having 9 sacks, despite having kind of a breakout season, he only had an 11.5% pass rush win rate last year. That was tied for 86th in the country. And to me, that just means that there is a big untapped, gear for Falk to hit this year. You see that he has the physical traits, you see that he has the athleticism. I think 2025 could be the year that he announces himself as being worthy of, top 10 consideration in the NFL draft, but I'm not necessarily sure that's where he is today. What do you think?
Yeah, I thought the pass rushing, you kind of noticed the like 11% pass rush win rate. I feel like there was a little bit left to be desired,
Yep.
but where he lacked that, I think the run defense was just exceptional. Like he would just felt like an awesome run defender, setting the edge like with ease against tackles, and then meeting pulling guards and like getting them back on their heels. That's where you see him throw that weight around, where it feels like he's 280 pounds and like knows how to functionally use it on the field. And then it felt like a lot of the times when it was run downs, he would sit on the outside, and when it was pass downs, he'd go inside. And I think that also affects his pass rush win rate a little bit because I feel like he's a better rusher when he's on the outside. When he comes in on the inside, it feels like it's easier to get double teamed. It's it's harder to sort through the mess, and that's why D tackles are less valuable in our scoring settings because sacks are so valuable. But if he's sitting, in 5-tech full time, then I feel like you could see those numbers jump up a little bit. But because he's so versatile and because he uses his weight so well, I feel like that's not going to happen, at least at Auburn. He also just like holds two gaps so well. Like it just feels like he's standing up this guard and like he's waiting till the last second. This like running back's not going to fool him. This whatever chicanery is going on in the backfield's not going to. He's just stonewalling this guy and holding down two gaps. And then once that running back makes a decision, he's going to discard this person and bury a running back. So I think like the best run defending edge that I watched, at least from these guys. And so that's going to get you plenty of snaps on an NFL team regardless.
Yeah, 100% agree. The run defense was very, very exciting to see from a young player like this. 83.4 run defense grade according to PFF. So that what you saw with your eyes is backed up with PFF sorting through an entire season's worth of film. Because I mean, he really has such a great sense for where to be and how to eat up space, and strong as hell
Mm-hmm.
as well. Um, the motor is awesome too.
Yep.
I mean, he's one of those guys that's always moving. And I think that, he needs some pretty significant development as a pass rusher, I would say. You're not seeing a lot of, obviously like going from a player like Parker to Falk, it's pretty jarring when you see like the variety of moves and the technique that's being deployed. I think Falk is just a lot more raw in that sense, but he is motoring his way to sacks consistently
Mm-hmm.
as well.
Right.
Like he's just one of those guys that just does not give up on the play. So I think he's kind of set up right as it sits right now to be kind of a high floor player in the upcoming class. And if he unlocks a little bit of his pass rush potential this year, that's when this player starts to become, I'm thinking of a player like Tyree Wilson,
Right.
the ascent because of his prowess in the run game, as well as the allure of his 6'6" frame and what he was kind of flashing as a rusher. If Falk was able to do some of that this year, I mean, I think it's pretty, it wouldn't be shocking at all for him to go in the top 10 next year.
Yeah, and then there's also like the Darius Robinson path where like
Yeah.
he could just be like a solid interior player at the next level if he packs on a little more weight. But I would rather see him go the other way and be a like pass rusher that, maybe shed 10 pounds and become a full-time five tech that can go inside and is an awesome run defender. So we'll see which path he ends up going down.
Curious to see what you think about our next player. It is Rueben Bain Jr. from Miami.
Great name.
I mean, it doesn't get any better than that
Yeah.
for an edge rusher.
Right.
Rueben Bain. You want Rueben Bain staring you down as your quarterback? 92 overall, Rueben Bain on the Hurricanes. 6'3", 275, four-star recruit in the class of 2023, number 71 overall player. Hell of a edge D line group that in 2023. I mean,
Yeah.
all these guys were showing out as freshmen. And Rueben Bain may be the best freshman season of all of these players that we're talking about. He earned the ACC Defensive Rookie of the Year in 2023 for 45 pressures, 9 sacks, 2 forced fumbles. Hell of a way to, jump onto the scene.
That following an incredible high school career. I don't know if you have this.
No, give it to me.
He had 77 career sacks in high school, leading Miami Central High School to 4 consecutive state championships. So,
Man, imagine playing for 4 consecutive championship teams and then going to Miami.
yeah, right.
Just like, this isn't what I signed up
Yeah,
for.
come on, you guys suck.
Cam Ward tried his hardest, but even then, it just doesn't work. But in 2024, it wasn't quite as peachy keen for Rueben Bain. He missed 4 games and finished the season with only 28 pressures and 4 sacks. So pretty significant regression, even with those games kind of, factored in. Still seemed like it was kind of a regression in his overall performance as a true sophomore. He did have 6 pressures to end the season in the bowl game against Iowa State. And despite what the numbers told you, he did still have a 14.6% pass rush win rate, which was 38th in the nation, and significantly higher than a player like Faulk, who had a much better statistical season as a rusher. So I'm curious, what did you think about Bain from last season?
Yeah, so Bain got hurt week 1, hurt his calf, and apparently was never playing at 100% after that. I think you can kind of see that. I feel like you are missing some of that explosiveness that maybe he shows earlier on. He's lacks a little bit of length. Kind of a smaller. He's 6'3", doesn't have like the 6'6", the long arms, that kind of stuff. But the first step is awesome. Can get him in the backfield immediately, and I think because he relies so much on that athleticism, that explosiveness, that calf injury like really pulls it back because you know you see the stuff. Watch the NBA. When you get a calf injury, you got to be worried about like what might follow that. But like bursting and like getting out of a stance when you have a calf injury can be scary. So take your time recovering from that. But he can like the motor on this guy seems also like real high, where he like from snap to whistle he's going. Um, uh, he's got like a lot of moves. They're not always like perfect technique, but I think he has like a lot in his bag, and that's a good thing to start with. So like as a sophomore, having a deep bag, even if it's not totally refined, getting it refined is easier than learning new sets and rules and counters. So I think there's a lot here and a lot of potential here. I think a full healthy season will show us a lot of who this player is. But regardless, like I'm pretty excited. He also just wanted to note had offers from Alabama, Georgia, LSU, and he decided to stay home in Miami. So this is his own doing. So he's probably I'm not feeling bad for him anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm with you. The motor was the thing that really stood out to me watching him. Another one of these guys that just there's really no quit on any play. And a lot of times, like you said, the technique is not super refined. I think he is doing a little bit of athleting as
Mm-hmm.
an edge rusher right now, but because of that motor, he can just kind of keep powering as the play goes on. There's a lot of his sacks from last year. I mean, there's only 4 of them, but a handful of the ones that I watched were just like pure effort plays.
Yeah.
Like the pocket's kind of collapsing and he's just like unrelenting, getting his arms in there and trying to get hands on the quarterback. So you love to see that obviously out of an edge rusher. And I think there is a little bit of the length here. I don't see him having, super long arms, especially when you compare him to the last 2 players that we talked about. He is a little bit more of a stockier player at 6'3", that is showing up a little bit more to me in the length. But like you said, the athleticism, the get off, it's definitely, very high end. So I think contextualizing it with the calf injury in week 1 and then that sort of lingering into the season as well. I mean, it makes a lot of sense why a player like this and one that's winning in the ways that he is right now would kind of feel the effects of that a little bit more. So I'm definitely excited to see what he has this year. Hopefully, a fully healthy season, get a little bit back to that
Mm-hmm.
freshman year form. I would say right now, based off of what I watched, this would be like a step down for me. I,
Sure.
I think Parker is probably probably on a tier of his own right now. Faulk, I like just a little bit more because of the length, but I think Bain is kind of the next notch below that, and certainly a player that could climb up into that top 15 range in the draft this year.
Yeah, I think I have Falk and Bane in like a similar area, just because Falk, as like just when we talk like dynasty fantasy, I think Falk the pass rush stuff might be limited a little bit, and Bane, I feel like the pass rush ceiling is so high that like I feel like that kind of levels him out and brings him to a similar area. Falk, I feel like could like I don't think there's a as much bust potential though with Falk as there is for Bane. So I feel like I'd have him higher, but it's pretty subjective between those 2 guys, I think.
Yeah, I see 6'6", 270, 20 years old, and I'm just like, I'm all in.
Yep, yep.
I don't even care what I'm seeing. But I mean, these guys are all young too. I don't have Bain's date of birth. It was not available, but it does seem like he is 20 years old right now based on what I saw. I would expect he'll be either newly 21 or just shy of that on draft day as well. So this is a very young, very what can they all become sort of an edge class. so we can all keep talking ourselves into, the things that we're not seeing yet
Right.
on film. But we can keep doing that with our fourth defensive lineman. This is Matayo Uiagalelei.
Okay.
Is that right?
Sure. I watched my film on mute.
See, I don't. It's DJ's brother,
Yeah.
if you didn't guess, and I've
I
never
think
had a
it's
reason.
Uiagalelei.
Uiagalelei. That's what it is.
Yeah.
You're right.
Okay.
I'm just gonna strike what I said for
Okay.
from
Mateo.
the record. Mateo.
Yeah, Mateo.
Mateo U.
Yeah.
That's 6'5", 270. He is at Oregon. 4-star recruit in the class of 2023. Number 47 player, though. So now this is the second highest rated player in that group that we've talked about out of these four, right behind Parker. He is the younger brother of DJ, like I said, played in 13 games as a true freshman, 12 pressures, 2 sacks. And then a common theme here, the breakout season comes in the true sophomore year, 2024, 31 pressures, 9 sacks, 1 forced fumble, and an interception. And he's playing around, guys that are in the league right now. I mean, this Oregon defense, take your pick. All of these guys got drafted, the edge players, the defensive. So he was getting on the field, even, among that group of talented players. He was putting up numbers among that group. And 15.5% win rate for him, pass rush win rate. That was tied for 28. So that's going to be one of the higher numbers here out of this group of four. Again, I think right around where Parker was sitting, maybe even a little bit ahead of where Parker was sitting at 15.3 for Parker. So just a hair above that. So with that said, did that show up for you when you were watching
Uiagalelei.
Uiagalelei? I quit.
I thought that the athleticism is what flashed. Like with him, it's a similar, I think, scouting report to Bain, which you kind of mentioned is like he is incredibly athletic. He has a great first step, has good bend. I think like you see him like playing stand up linebacker every once in a while. He's versatile. So like I think he had a pick against Wisconsin. I didn't watch that game, but I think remembering back to the season, he had a pick against Wisconsin
at the end of the game. I think it sealed it.
Right. So I think he like had good instincts as a run defender too. It felt like he did a good job stretching and like being disciplined, setting the edge against in run defense. So there's definitely a lot of things that I liked about him. Also played both sides in high school, as all these like really good players did. Played tight end as his other position, so that's kind of fun. I am interested to see if like we add a little more polish to like the fun, athletic, exciting, versatile player, because if we do like could again be like a top 20 pick in the NFL draft if like a team bites on the young freak athlete from Oregon.
Yeah, I'm exactly with you, and I am confirming Uiagalelei.
Okay.
Uiagalelei.
Right.
Okay, I'm just
You
drilling it into my head.
Yes.
Matayo Uiagalelei.
There it is. We're gonna be saying it all year, so
yes. Hopefully, and I think we will, because I'm with you. I think right now the athleticism is obviously there, and I think a player that is showing you a little bit of refinement right now in his game, but I think certainly a lot more room to go. I'm kind of with you where him and Bain were on a very similar plane for me in this group. Similar builds, but Mateo has the extra length that I wasn't finding with Bain. So if I were to stack it right now, I might even prefer Uiagalelei to Bain.
There it is.
There it is. It's just rolling off the tongue now. So yeah, I'm really excited to see what he can do this year. I mean, obviously all of these, Oregon defenders now have moved on to the NFL. He will be the star
Mm-hmm.
of this defense this upcoming season. I mean, they're going to have other guys. They have, Dylan, another last name that I can't even say. I'm not even going to try
Yeah,
it.
we can move on. It's all right. Keep pushing.
Dylan, the safety from Purdue. That's the one that I'm talking about. He'll be in the back end, but Uiagalelei will be the one up front. So definitely an exciting group. And again, like all four of these guys, we're talking about potentially, top 20 sort of ceilings in the upcoming draft. I mean, that's going to make all of them very relevant in terms of IDPs. So
Is it
uh,
Thieneman?
Thieneman, there it
Yeah,
is.
okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say Thieneman, and then I was like, that doesn't sound right.
That's okay.
All right, Jesus.
Now that we're done with phonetics class.
Yeah, right. So we have one potential superstar edge at the top, and a bunch of other fun ones, and more even beyond the three others that we talked about. We may hit some more of those at the end, but now let's turn our attention to that linebacker group that we talked about at the beginning of the show, because I'm very excited to hear what you thought of these guys. One of them is a familiar name. Actually, two of them are familiar names. But before we get there, the number one linebacker that we're talking about is Anthony Hill Jr. from Texas. Another one of the guys, 95 overall. It's going to be tied with TJ Parker for the second highest overall in the game that we're talking about. And why is that? Because he's kind of a freak show. 6'3", 239, was a 5-star player in the class of 2023. Was the number 17 overall player in the class. And like some of our edge rushers, he certainly hit the ground running as a true freshman in 2023. 64 tackles, 4 sacks, a forced fumble, and a touchdown for him. He won Big 12 Defensive Freshman of the Year.
What an honor.
And right, he's got that up on the shelf. That's as prestigious as the Heisman in some circles. 2024, though, again, it's copy paste. 100 tackles, 16 tackles for loss, 6 sacks, 4 forced fumbles, 1 interception, 2 touchdowns. The guy filled the stat sheet. If that was an IDP stat line, that's a lot of points.
That's a lot of points.
So he put it on the stat sheet, and when you see 6'3", 240-ish moving the way Anthony Hill Jr. does, that's a pretty exciting proposition when you talk about an IDP linebacker.
Yeah. Incredible high school player. I'm going to keep outlining these high school careers because it's fun. 303 tackles and 13 sacks over his high school career. Led the team to a Division I state championship in Texas, which is really impressive. 15-0 that team. And then he also they got silver in the 4x400 as a track athlete. So he was part of that relay team. So you talk about a freak show athlete. This is a guy, I mean, the closing speed that he shows is, why he might have been a part of that track team, but also very decisive as a linebacker. It feels like he knows what's going on. It's like, I don't know. It's kind of a toss-up for me between this guy and the next guy we're talking about because I like them both so much. But it feels like he operates like mentally at a really high level, that he understands what's going on and isn't fooled a ton, and is so decisive because he's so confident and sure about what's going on in front of him. And so he snaps and closes in like an instant. And that's what leads to these tackles for loss, these sacks, and then also his ability in the coverage game, because he's not only decisive going downhill, but he's also decisive as a pass coverage weapon. So he's also very active against blockers. Sometimes you see guys kind of waiting and like sifting back and like strafing to like buy time before they engage with the block, and he's making that contact and like meeting the blocker where he is, and a very clean tackler. He's not somebody that's going for like the highlight, the big hit, the like hit stick all the time. Feels like he's like, textbook if you want to learn how to tackle the appropriate, like, safe, like, NFL certified way, you watch Anthony Hill tape, because he's coming in like chest out, wrap up, and put you on your back, and like that's it.
Yeah, that's what's so funny about him is because he has a 15% missed tackle rate,
Mm-hmm.
which is, pretty high,
Yeah.
like higher than I'm looking for. But I don't think it's because he's a poor tackler. I think it's because he's playing so fast.
Yeah.
Like he is like flying past guys. Like he'll get his hands on a guy, but he's just moving so fast that he's then like he takes himself kind of behind them, and then he's got to try to wrap from the back, which he does.
Yeah.
But I think that's why he's missing, some
Right.
tackles. Is he's just, I mean, he's a lightning bolt. It's insane to see a player of his size in an age where, it's 225 guys in college. He's playing closer to 240, and he's moving as well as any of these guys do, if not better than all of them. I love what you said about the decisiveness. That was the biggest thing I wrote down, was just plays fast, plays decisive. He is identify, go,
Yep.
tackle. It's all happening in the blink of an eye. So I think, when you look at what does a potential, first round NFL linebacker look like, I think this is it. That's not to say that he is necessarily like there right now. I mean, I can't say decisively whether he is or not based off of what I watched, but I can tell you that this is the sort of player that is going to get the buzz that he's getting right now, and is earning that level of buzz because of the level of an athlete that he is, fused with how productive he's been at Texas.
Yep. Yeah. I think this, like I said, between him and this next guy we're talking about, like, I think there's some competition for the number one linebacker spot, but it feels like in a lot of people's eyes, Hill is a pretty clear number one.
And I think the reason for that, well, I'll parlay this into our next player. Hill has this rare athleticism,
Yes.
but Deontae Lawson, who is our next linebacker, I think is just playing the position at such a high level.
Yes.
Maybe he's not, quite at that level. He's certainly a great athlete,
Yeah.
but maybe he's not quite, doesn't have that, top gear that Hill does, but he just plays the position so well. This is a true Camp Dynasty legend. It's very rare that guys are at Camp Dynasty for 3 years, and it's not because they just like turned out to be kind of mid or
Right.
or bad. I believe Lawson got a badge in 2022, back when Will Anderson was still on the Crimson Tide defense, because he was making plays as a true sophomore for them, enough that, or a redshirt sophomore for them, that he got a badge here. And then last year, it felt like it was going to be the year that he was, in the IDP class for 2025. He was a 5-star in 2021. We talked about that last year. He was one of our top players heading into the season. He was having a great season. And then he tore his ACL in week 13 against Oklahoma. And he said, I mean, he said it. He was like, I was going to be in the draft
Yeah.
this year if that didn't happen. And so he said, I felt like I had unfinished business. There's probably some, like, you're going to get drafted later than you want because of that. So he decides to come back, redshirt senior year for Alabama. 6'2", 230. That's a little bit down from last year. It was listed at 239 last year. So I'm not sure, what, if that's just like they're taking measurements after he's been rehabbing or something, but he's definitely a bigger player, a bigger linebacker. He looks a little bit more filled out there. He finished last season, before the injury, 79 tackles, 2 sacks, a forced fumble, a pick, and 2 touchdowns. So he was well on his way to having another great year for Alabama. I mean, he almost put together a full season for them. So what did you think about the Camp Dynasty legend Deontae Lawson?
Yeah, I loved Deontae Lawson from Mobile Christian High School. Captained a 3A championship team in 2019, 134 tackles, lineman of the year, which I
Ooh.
thought was interesting. Not linebacker of the year. He also played wide receiver and running back for Mobile Christian School. And then obviously ends up at Alabama and is a just like dominant force as a linebacker. Really aggressive player. You talk about like Anthony Hill with his speed, and like his kind of like clean wraps and like his more of like a safe tackling style, I'd say. Lawson feels like he's coming downhill and he's trying to put you in the dirt. Like he's like an aggressive player, but he's also like smart and patient. It's not like
Yeah.
unfounded like flying past the play. It's I know my keys and I am triggering off of those keys and then I'm making a big play. And it feels like he has also like a brain built to play linebacker. So there was like a situation against Wisconsin. I'm sure you probably might have noticed it. I don't know if you remember that Wisconsin game if you didn't watch it recently, but there was a 4th-and-1, and he's just like shoots the gap, meets Malusi like at the handoff point almost, and stands him up until the team can rally, and like he's 3 yards behind the line of scrimmage. And it's just like the textbook like big linebacker play that you can make of I'm gonna like meet you in the backfield. It's 4th down. It's you versus me, mano y mano. Who's gonna win? And Lawson seems to be the guy that's winning more often than not. And he's also extremely active in coverage. Like he's flying around. His like eyes are always moving around. He like again understands the game at a high level, is seeing what the quarterback is doing when the quarterback is loading and can like shoot to that spot. So really good playmaker in the pass game and a really just awesome run defender.
Yeah, where Anthony Hill is like uncontainable aggression, Lawson is like calculated aggression.
Right.
Like he's just like he's picking his spots, he's going to lay the boom when he gets there, but he's not playing at that frenzied pace that you're getting with Hill. And obviously there's benefits to that when you have that level of athleticism that Hill does, that he can close in the speed that he can, but Lawson is just playing at such a it's he seems like such a poised player out there. And I love to see that out of a linebacker, especially, there's going to be a little bit of that, psychosomatic Alabama linebacker lineage with Lawson. And he just feels like the next guy. These guys
Mm-hmm.
just have that, it's a pipeline. We've seen it for many, many years in the NFL. And I think Lawson, as long as he is able to recover from the injury and there's no problems there, and he has another one of the seasons that he's had for the last 2 years now, he'll be one of the top linebackers for sure, just like he would have been last year. I mean,
Yep.
absolutely would have been last year. So yeah, very excited to see what Lawson has in his final season. Sticking in the SEC, heading over to Georgia, because of course there's a Georgia defender that we're talking about.
Shocking.
Just one right now. But it is a linebacker, CJ Allen, 6'1", 235. No like Jalen Walker business this time around. He's not playing edge. He's playing linebacker. He's 91 overall, by the way. So is Deontae Lawson, if I didn't mention that. 4-star player in the class of 2023, number 48 overall player. This recruiting class, kind of insane. 2023. He, like Uiagalelei, was a multi-position standout in high school.
There it
Do
is.
you have this in your notes?
I do, but go.
He played running back, and 24/7's Gabe Brooks remarked that he would have been a Power 5 caliber running back prospect had he chosen that direction. But instead, he just ends up being a top 50 recruit and going to the best defense of the
Dang
last.
it.
Yeah. So if that tells you anything, he's extremely athletic. Very, another one of these kind of freak show players. He played in all 14 games on the Georgia defense as a true freshman, started 5 games that season. And then last year had 79 tackles, 38 stops, a pick, and 2 touchdowns. Also added 20 pressures, though did not have a sack. And when you look at the grades from PFF, I think Lawson has a really good run defense grade. Hill has a pretty good one as well. CJ Allen was the best of the best with this group, just purely on PFF's basis. 89.8 run defense grade for him. That was 7th in the country. However, he did only have a 48.3 coverage grade from PFF. So if we're listening to PFF, there's a little bit of a dichotomy with this player. He's an excellent run defender, needs a lot of work in coverage. Is that what you saw based on what you watched with CJ Allen?
I thought CJ Allen was an awesome run defender. Like, not the best in the class, but like when you talk about a guy that specializes in something, and I do think this is his superpower, and it is as a run defender for CJ Allen. So what I noticed is, like, as a strong side linebacker, really good. As a weak side linebacker, he's unbelievable. Like, on the strong side, he's diagnosing, he's getting to the front side of plays, he's making plays. As a weak side linebacker, like scraping down and shooting like the cutback and getting tackles for loss, it's like, oh man, this is kind of special. So I thought that was a lot of fun. He's always moving is something I noticed. Is he's a very like kinetic player, really good athlete. I mean that goes for like all these guys really. But yeah, I thought like as a guy, kind of like Dre Greenlaw-esque as like a weak side linebacker, filling those gaps. If you can put him, put him next to Fred Warner, whatever. But like put him next to a good, field general linebacker that's playing on the strong side that is like a better coverage guy. I think he can be like unbelievable. But there is definitely a big, drawback with the pass coverage stuff.
Yeah, I didn't see enough of him in coverage to know for sure how I feel about it, but I'm going to just trust that if PFF's grading him as the 28th worst coverage linebacker, and he's probably got some
Yeah.
room for improvement
Yeah.
in that area. But yeah, I'm with you. As a run defender, I mean, he is, I think, the next guy up with this Georgia crew when you just talk about this pipeline of guys that are ultra uber athletic. Sometimes they're playing on the edge, sometimes they're playing in the middle, sometimes they're playing linebacker. And I think a lot of these Georgia linebackers that have some preseason hype have not like put it all together and been like top picks. Jalen Walker was a little bit different because he was projected as an edge. But I'm thinking back from the last few iterations of the Georgia defense, these pure linebackers have not really done it. I would be surprised if CJ Allen was not a like top 50 sort of player
Mm-hmm.
in the upcoming draft, or at least had like buzz like in around that range because of his athleticism and his instincts against the run. And I think he's, as long as he can put together another season like he had last year,
Yeah.
this year, he should be well on his way.
100%.
All right, let's talk about a couple of players to finish out the linebacker category because they both play on the same team, and it's LSU. We're talking about Harold Perkins again. We'll have a little bit of a discussion about Harold Perkins and where we sit with him in 2025. And the other one is Whit Weeks, because there's two linebackers, two undersized linebackers on this LSU defense that are certainly both worthy of discussion when talking about the upcoming IDP class. We've talked a lot about Perkins. We talked about him last year. He was one of our top IDPs going into the season. A little bit of background on Weeks: 6'2", 225. He was a 4-star player in the class of 2023 as well. So Perkins had all the buzz, obviously, after that 2022 season where he was playing primarily as an edge rusher. They moved him to inside linebacker. He kind of struggled in that role. And then we had a lot of questions, coming into last season. Would we see, an improved version of him on the inside or playing as the will? Or not. And that would kind of tell the story of what was going to come with Perkins. And unfortunately, we didn't really get to see that because he tore his ACL in week 4. So Perkins goes down. And meanwhile, it's Weeks who's emerging as the star linebacker, off ball linebacker for this Tigers team. Weeks had 108 tackles, 56 stops, 4 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, an interception, and a touchdown in what was an absolute breakout campaign. That was unfortunately cut short at the very last moment because he broke his fibula and dislocated his ankle in a very gruesome
Nasty.
sort of injury in LSU's bowl game against Baylor. So while we got to basically get a full season of Weeks in, he did suffer an injury of his own at the very end of the season. However, despite how gruesome and nasty that injury was, he is supposedly already cleared for football activities. So that,
Why not?
a layperson like me was like thinking, "Oh, when are we going to see him again?" He's like, "No, I'm already on the field. I'm like Perkins is still recovering, but I'm good."
If I roll my ankle, I feel like I'm like out of commission for like quite a while.
Yeah.
And I'm like at work and I'm like, yeah, no, the ankle's still hanging me up. And he's like, yeah, no, I'm playing football again. So these guys are superheroes. I'll
Yeah.
continue to say it. And with Weeks, well, I'll start with him.
Yeah.
Just like a tackle, like a vacuum. It feels like sideline to sideline machine. Had 2 17+ tackle games against Alabama and Oklahoma, getting Defensive Player of the Week both of those weeks. Son of a Georgia offensive lineman, David Weeks, and it's just like he is a good athlete. Like I said, with sideline to sideline range. He also understands his keys and triggers off of those. Can close on ball carriers pretty easily. Is like a good blitzer. We haven't talked much about these guys as blitzers, but you see that show up on Weeks. When you watch Weeks here and there, where he's coming down, and his closing feels like better than some of the other guys that we've talked about that may end up higher or better or whatever. It feels like when he closes, he's getting his mitts on you and he's getting you on the ground, which is the number one thing we need as a linebacker is get these guys on the ground. On the Perkins side of things, the evaluation doesn't change a whole lot, I don't think, because he's an awesome player. He was a weird tweener as a freshman, and then moving to off ball more full time as a sophomore, and then blows the ACL, and it's okay, well, now we feel pretty much the same about him. Excited to see him be off ball full time. Want to see some improvement out of him in the technical aspects. He's a freak athlete. But now, what does it look like while we're recovering from an ACL injury? So, as much as I love Harold Perkins, you usually have a down year after you tear your ACL before you're fully back. So we'll see. That's kind of where I'm at with Perkins. Weeks I'm excited about because he's probably going to be a featured piece of this defense. And then Perkins will be more of a chess piece to kind of move around for this defensive coordinator.
Yep, that's where I'm at too. I think Perkins had all of the, accolades and the eyes on him. And, we were expecting to see big things out of him after that 2022 season. And to be quite honest with you, ahead of 2025, I think Weeks is the more intriguing draft prospect. Like I'm more interested to see what we get from Weeks this season than Perkins, because I am pretty concerned that Perkins is a player that just does not have a home on defense. The reason I say that too is because they are moving him again. They tried him inside, they tried him on the weak side. Now he is going to be playing in the star role on this defense, which
Right.
is the linebacker DB hybrid sort of a position. So we talked about the size, the 220, and now he is kind of transitioning into this hybrid sort of a role. And we've seen, countless numbers of these players that it's like, man, you're such a great athlete, but like there's really not a spot for you here. And I think LSU is trying to, obviously maximize what is an exceptional talent.
Right.
There's no question about his talent, but when you talk about projecting that to the NFL, it starts to get a little bit unclear. And like Brian Kelly was pretty, clear about that as well when speaking about all of these position changes, because people say, why didn't you just keep him on the edge? Like he was a game wrecker as a
Mm-hmm.
true freshman off the edge. And Brian Kelly basically said, like, we are LSU. We feel like we have a responsibility to develop these players for the NFL.
Yep.
It's not just about winning college football games. Whether you agree with that or not is up to you. But I kind of like that, because I think if you are a player like Perkins, like your goal is to get to the NFL. And Brian Kelly is identifying, this is how we're going to have to get you there. It's just not clicking. It's not working in the way that all parties had hoped thus far. So I am, obviously still excited to see what Perkins can do, hopefully in a full season. Got to see how he bounces back from the injury, of course, but obviously the talent is undeniable. And with Weeks, I think there's just a little bit more to cling on to right now. Obviously, he doesn't have as much pure talent as Harold Perkins, but he's a great athlete, like you said. And I think there's enough, high level linebacker play happening from Weeks from this past season, that if that, injury doesn't hamper him at all this year, I think he could certainly be one of the top off ball guys we're talking about.
If the injury doesn't hamper him at all, I'm gonna be
Yeah.
astonished
Yeah.
at like feats that humans
Well,
can
he's
perform.
already, it's like if he's already on the field right now, I'm like, what? Maybe this guy is a
Yeah,
superhuman.
I mean, I'm in. If you're like if he puts up like 12 tackles week one,
Yeah.
he's going up my board. Sorry, with like a foot that just got placed back on his leg. Like, all right, all right, cool. Sounds like a linebacker to me.
Yep. That's it. All right. We have one position group and one player left to talk about. And I said at the beginning, maybe the best for last. It's a little bit weird in IDP when you talk about DBs, because you never quite know where they're going to end up. You never quite know how they're going to translate in terms of production. But if there's been a safety in the last 4 years for us that has been worth speaking about at the top of an IDP class, it would certainly be Caleb Downs. Because all Caleb Downs has done since the second he stepped foot in college football has been maybe the best safety in the entire sport. 6
Well,
foot
in college football,
in,
not the
yeah,
entire sport.
in the collegiate level of the sport.
Yeah,
There it is. Well, I don't know.
I would have let you get the takeoff. I'd have listened to it.
Maybe I want to fire it off. If he gets drafted top 5 in 8 months, he might just be the best safety. So what's stopping him right now?
Kyle Hamilton.
Well, once upon a time,
Yep.
we were talking about Kyle Hamilton like this. See, now the thing is, will Caleb Downs break this streak that we're on with no safeties going in the top 10? I think
Right.
that's the story, because Hamilton was supposed to be that guy, fell out of the top 10 just
Yeah.
barely. But I think Downs right now being talked about very, very highly. I mean, we're talking about Like, think all the way back to like Eric Berry going 6th overall or whatever that was that year. That's kind of what we're talking
How high
about
did
with.
Jamal Adams go?
That was top 10. I
Yeah,
think that was the last time. Yeah.
right.
That was the last time. 2017 was the last time. So uh Downs, how can he get there, or why is he in the conversation to get there? Well, he was a 5-star player in the class of 2023, the number 8 overall player in the class, the highest of all of these amazing 2023 defensive recruits that we're talking about. He committed to Alabama. The Crimson Tide, this defense, historic, always noteworthy year after year, littered with NFL talent year after year. Caleb Downs came in as a true freshman, played 890 snaps, and finished the season with 109 tackles, 30 stops, 2 picks, 2 touchdowns, an 85.6 overall defensive grade from PFF just to top it all off, because that's what he cares about.
And he led the team in tackles.
Yeah. 109, if that seems a little high. Yeah. He led Alabama as a true freshman, as a safety in tackles, won the National Freshman of the Year.
First freshman in Alabama history to lead the team in tackles, too, as a DB.
Yeah.
Unreal.
Like, think of all of the NFL linebackers that came from Alabama. And now think about the fact that this 600 or 6', 205 safety came in as an 18-year-old and put up more tackles than any of them did at that time. So obviously, when you're the 8th overall player in the recruiting class, you have a historic season as a true freshman at Alabama. That's going to get your name kind of plastered all over everything. That ends up with Caleb Downs entering the transfer portal, being the number 1 overall player in the portal in 2024, and going to Ohio State, where he is today. And for the what became national championship Ohio State Buckeyes team, Caleb Downs had 85 tackles, 31 stops, a sack, and 2 picks. He improved his PFF grade from his freshman year to 87.9. He was a unanimous first team All-American. So heading into his junior season, I mean, it seems like he is the chosen one as a safety. He's done literally everything. He's been at 2 of the top programs in college football, and he's conquered both of them. He was one of 2 safeties last season that had a run defense grade and a coverage grade from PFF that were both above 85. The other was the legendary Craig Woodson, who was a 4th round pick out of Cal this past draft. But I mean, if Craig Woodson, who was most likely a senior, was doing that and getting drafted in the 4th round, we're talking about a true sophomore doing that on the best team in college football. Ohio State's out here talking about get Caleb Downs, Heisman odds while you can, because he's going to be in the conversation for the Heisman this year. This is the level of hype that we've really, not seen with a DB prospect, certainly in the 4 years that we've done this. But I mean, even, a lot further back than just that as well.
Yeah, this is like almost as close to a household name for a defensive player as you can get in college. Downs is like really exciting to watch, and integral piece, obviously, in the national championship team. Like, incredible athlete. You're talking about a guy that can just fly and cover the entire field as a free safety, as a strong safety, like as a guy that can play both safety positions, can get up in the box, obviously, and get his nose dirty. We talked about, his 107, 109 tackles at Alabama as a leading tackler, also still doing that at Ohio State, where he's just like I'd be afraid if I was a receiver, going across the middle and like knowing that he's bearing down on me from the second level. Also, like the fluidity that he has, it just feels like he's like doing what he's meant to do, and then is just like a football genius. It just has a full comprehensive understanding. We talked about Genty having this almost like premonition kind of like feel for the game of like he knows how these blocks are going to develop and where the linebackers are going to go. Feels like Downs operates in the same facet where he is fully understanding exactly how these plays are going to develop, and like obviously has done hours and hours and hours of film study to like the route concept is like forming in front of him, and he's like, I got it, and just like make the play. And it just feels like it happens so often. Moves like a cornerback in coverage, and then hits like maybe undersized linebacker when he's coming down in run defense. So just an incredibly fun player to watch.
Yeah, the instincts that like almost like kind of outer worldly diagnostic skill that he has is, I mean, it's in coverage, but the run, I mean, against the run is like crazy. To see a safety that makes as many plays behind the line of scrimmage against the run as Downs does, and he's just reading these plays before they even happen. Like he's coming down, he knows where to be, he knows how to find the ball carrier and get them to the ground. I mean, it's honestly, it's amazing to watch.
Yeah.
Like you don't think that watching a safety is usually very fun, but just watching at the level that Caleb Downs is playing at, like it's a blast. And I think for IDP purposes, because we can talk about a player like Malachi Starks last year, who was certainly, shaping up to be a great, prospect in his own right. Maybe not quite at the level of Downs, obviously, but and then, he ends up getting drafted to play free safety beside Kyle Hamilton. So it's like, from an IDP perspective, maybe not quite what we hoped for. I would be shocked if Downs wasn't like highly relevant as an IDP.
Yeah.
His game is so IDP friendly. And obviously it shows up with the tackle numbers that he's had and his ability against the run and moving downhill, as a safety. I mean, he is the sort of DB prospect that is potentially going to be a second round pick in rookie drafts. Like Kyle Hamilton was once upon a time a second round player for us. Downs, I think, can easily be in that conversation.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I like going back to our conversation at the beginning, like I can see a very clear path for him to become a, talk about Jamal Adams, number 6 overall in 2017. Like there's a path for that to happen for Caleb Downs.
Yeah, there's a path where he is the first non-quarterback taken.
Yeah.
And that's totally realistic in this class.
I'd agree.
Fun fact also, did you know this? Do you know who his brother is?
Is it Josh Downs?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
No, that's an educated guess, but I makes sense. I mean, they move kind of the same.
Yeah. I mean, it's a hell of a football family. Josh Downs is his brother. His dad played in the NFL. His uncle is Dre Bly.
Yep.
So
two-time Pro Bowler.
Two-time Pro Bowler Dre Bly. Damn right. So I mean, the bloodlines are certainly there, and Downs is maybe going to be the best of them all. But well, I guess Caleb is going to be the best. They're all two of them are Downs. So all right. That's 2026 IDP class as it sits. Way too early right now, but I have a pretty good feeling about certainly a player like Downs, TJ Parker. I mean, a lot of these, Anthony Hill, I'd be shocked if these guys are not the top players or, names that we're talking about that are super fantasy relevant, super IDP relevant by the time the NFL draft comes around. I mean, it's such an athletic class. We went through the recruiting. All of these guys have pedigree. They all came from a place where this was supposed to be their final outcome. And it seems like they are all trending in that direction. So from that perspective, I think this has potential to be a very strong IDP class.
I 100% agree. I think that this is, one of the better IDP classes that we've had, I think, top to bottom. I think we've obviously had higher highs when we've been doing this for the last 4 years, but when you talk about like the volume of IDP players that you can feel pretty comfortable with, I think this is one of the better classes.
Yeah, agreed. Like across all three positions. Like today, if like there's no Will Anderson, that's always going to be the benchmark for me because he was the guy, and I think he still is probably the highest defensive player I've graded since we started this. But outside of that, I mean, just run through the list. They're all there, and there's high end talents at each position. So if you enjoyed our little preview, our little introduction to the 2026 IDP Dynasty rookie class, be sure to find us on Twitter, camp_dynasty, and TikTok at camp.dynasty. If you are watching us on YouTube, hello, and be sure to subscribe and like the video before you leave if you have not done so already. So we appreciate that. And if you are on the pod feed, like, rate, review, subscribe, follow, share, all of those things, because we very much appreciate that as well.
Oh yeah, on to the next. What's next? I'm sorry.
Next week, yeah, rankings, summer rankings are done.
It is.
We're moving on. Next week, we're putting it all together. First top 12 big boards.
What a moment.
So time to second guess all the work you just did for the last month and a half and stack a 12-player list.
Yeah, I was like on to the next rankings, and I was like, wait, no, this is IDP. This is the end of the rankings. That's crazy. Time flies when you're having fun.
It sure does. We'll be getting into a lot of fun content as the summer rolls on as well. So keep it right here. But thanks for stopping by Camp Dynasty this week, and we'll see you next week.